The government monitoring the suspension of the AstraZeneca vaccine, the health minister defends public campaigning, and a local political party chiming in on vaccines. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Tuesday, March 16th. Health Minister Renward Wells says the government's monitoring the suspension of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in 6 European countries. This almost 1 week since the jab's first doses made its way to our shores. However, Minister Wells contends that 20 million individuals have already taken the vaccine, and out of that number, 37 people have experienced blood clotting.
The research, we're not even sure that the clotting response is as a result of the vaccine. 37 out of 20 million. And so the WHO and others are doing the research, and they will give a more full and comprehensive report on Thursday. But the WHO has encouraged nations, keep vaccinating your people with AstraZeneca. Okay, we're looking at the data, but keep vaccinating.
Now, in the event those numbers do pick up, Minister Wells assures that the government will do its due diligence.
I think this whole process has shown just how responsive countries are globally to the monitoring of the taking of this vaccine. The Bahamian people can have confidence. Look at what has happened. We were able globally to pick out 37 individuals out of 20 million having received the vaccine. So it says that the global monitoring, the national monitoring here in the Bahamas, we put it in place with an electronic immunization record keeping now. That's going to be used not just for COVID, but for all vaccines. We developed that digital platform in country. And so we're a part of that global monitoring. So it should lend some confidence and faith to the Bahamian people that as we are rolling out this vaccine, that if there was adverse effect on the part of any Bahamians who would have taken it, we would be on the ball with them immediately, quickly.
AstraZeneca said on Sunday that there was no evidence of increased risk of blood clots from its vaccine after review of safety data of people vaccinated. Ireland, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland have suspended the use of the vaccine, while Austria stopped using a batch of shots last week. Health Minister Renward Wells also dancing around questions today surrounding political parties campaigning amidst the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic here in the country. Here's Laurencia Smith with that report.
As the upcoming general election draw near, over the last several weeks, both major political parties have been seen all over social media, with a large number of supporters with only some of the COVID-19 protocols being executed. Asked whether it's hypocritical of parties not to be following the emergency powers orders and the COVID-19 guidelines, Minister Wells says this.
If you have a group of persons, 10 individuals, gathering in a particular area and walking, that's different than having 50 individuals all together in a particular grouping and walking, okay? And like I said, and I would reiterate to all and sundry, the health protocols are there. They're there to be observed, and we ought to observe them.
Under the current EPO, gatherings with more than 20 people are prohibited. However, photos of candidates from both sides suggest differently. And notably, the Prime Minister, who is the competent authority, was seen with candidates and supporters posing for pictures closely, with some people not wearing masks correctly. Asked if health officials have advised against the campaigning activities, Minister Wells adds this.
I think that as long as there are health protocols in place, individuals ought to be observing those health protocols. I campaign, I observe the protocols, I wear my mask. A lot of the women want to hug, the men want to shake hands, and you need to be able to dap. And so from the standpoint of just campaigning, it isn't the activity that's the issue. It's whether or not you're engaging in the kinds of protocol while you're in that activity.
The EPO, which has been in place for a year, was crafted to help with the mitigation of the COVID-19 virus in country. I'm Laurencia Smith for JCN News.
Senators met briefly this morning for the first reading of a compendium of bills debated and passed in the lower chamber on Monday, namely a bill for an act to provide for the framework and procedures for the public procurement of goods, works, and services, to establish a public procurement department to promote transparency and integrity in in public procurement and for connected matters. Senators will begin debate on the mid-year budget at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Well, senators also addressed last week's Senate adjournment, which Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate, Fred Mitchell, called a most extraordinary event as the number of senators required for a quorum did not show up. The matter was also addressed following House Speaker Halson Moultrie's claims in the lower chamber on Monday that Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Attorney General Carl Bethel's statement following last week's event was a misinterpretation of what had happened. Here's what Senator Bethel told his colleagues.
There's nothing that I would say publicly on a matter of controversy that I could not stand in this Senate and say without fear of anyone saying that I was misleading the Senate. What I said was the truth as I saw it based on my records. Some have WhatsApps, I have WhatsApps. Cabinet met on the 9th and we discussed procedures. Consequent to that discussion, I walked out of this cabinet room and sent a message requesting the Senate to be called for Friday. There's no misleading of anybody. The statement I made was a statement merely to outline the sequence of events. No blame was ascribed to anybody. Nobody was accused of anything, just pointing to a sequence of events.
Senator Bethel contends that he would not throw the chief clerk under the bus and praised the clerk, David Forbes, who has served over 40 years in Parliament, noting that he is doing a commendable job. Now, in response to the AG's comments, Senator Mitchell says, having read the press statement by the AG, the public has drawn the conclusion that it was clearly throwing the clerk under the bus, even if it were not the intention. He also called for an apology.
I mean, I've had quite a lot of experience in this constitutional law business, and as I understood it, ministers are responsible for their personal acts and those of their departments. So the question of whether the clerk sent the notice out or didn't send the notice out should not have arisen. It should have been a simple, bare statement. We regret, we apologize for what happened, and move on. But I think that that, at the very least, Madam President, is what is expected. All of us were here, with the exception of Senator Clay Sweeting, who was excused because he's in Spanish Wells and the difficulties of traveling. But ministers are to be on the job. They sent the meeting. They said 10 o'clock on Friday, not us.
Senate President Dr. Mildred Hall Watson defended the governing senators, noting that there were enough senators to make up a quorum, adding that the question as to whether the notices went out could only have been done as a result of the individuals on the government side being present, adding that there were no questions as to whether the message was sent out. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.